Hello everyone, and welcome to the Good Morning Trading for Friday, May 22nd, 2026. A trader speaks to traders. Our trading week, which went by very quickly, is ending under tension. The Iranian supreme leader has just slammed the door on uranium. He issued a decree stating that uranium is not allowed to leave Iran. Brent crude has rebounded nearly 2% to over $104, and the US 10-year yield remains very high at 4.60%. After flirting with its highest levels in 16 months. Wall Street ended in the red yesterday, with all the indices losing about 0.5%. While, and this seems a bit paradoxical, Tokyo is soaring by more than 2% this morning, and futures remain a bit hesitant. Stay with me. Until the end of this video, I'll tell you the story of a man who built a colossal fortune. Thanks to a previous Iranian embargo, a fate that resonates. Let's say, strangely enough, with what we're experiencing today, it might give you an idea to take advantage of the situation. So we have 3 key points for this session. The digestion of an NVIDIA, that's considered good. The results are good, but not exceptional. I already told you this yesterday, and it was confirmed throughout the day. Then, of course, we still have the ongoing standoff. Washington, Tehran is setting the pace for oil and the ongoing pressure on long-term rates. But everything is connected. We'll go over this in detail, as I said, yesterday. Wall Street took a slight pause. The S&P fell, as did the Dow Jones and the Nasdaq. The only one that went up was the Russell 2000. That's the index of the 2,000 small-cap American companies. So to be included in the Russell 2000, they must have a market cap of over $1 billion. So there are more than 2,000 small American companies with a market cap over $1 billion. We'd already love to have even 50 of those. In Europe, those small American stocks are actually the very large, even huge stocks for some countries. I invite you to take a look for our Belgian friends at the Belvin and the market capitalization of the Belvin. Next to that, we have IBM, which soared by more than 12%, and Walmart, which released its earnings and dropped more than 6% after disappointing forecasts. Consumer spending, and on top of that, Walmart was hit hard, of course, by fuel costs. There's a lot of movement in commodities and raw materials for this company. I've already talked to you about long-term rates. In Asia, everything's going really well. Nikkei, Hang Seng, all the indices are up between 2% and 0.5%. Why? Because there are more and more oil tankers passing through. The Iranians are getting involved, acting a bit like pirates. They're playing pirates, taking money to let ships pass, while the Americans are enforcing a blockade. But the blockade only applies to Iranian ships, so they let Chinese and Japanese ships through. So we have quite a few supertankers passing through, which relieves Japan as it can once again receive millions of barrels of oil. That also explains this surge. And then there's NVIDIA, because the Nikkei is very sensitive to changes in the tech sector. That's what's interesting. The results from NVIDIA really excited the Asian markets. And as a result, all the Asian AI stocks shot up significantly. And then in the United States, not to say it was disappointing, but it definitely didn't excite anyone at all. Now, let's look at our technical analysis. Let's go. I'll walk you through it step by step. The CAC 40, great. It went above 8,000 points. Yesterday, it held at 8,500, so it wasn't retested. 8,000 is a very strong positive signal for the CAC 40. It's bouncing back, and this morning we're already up 0.70%. So they're feeling good. Why are they feeling good? We can see that all the European and American indices are in the green. Because they sense, the market senses, at least, the possibility that we're getting closer to a deal with Iran. Now, here I'd like to warn you about something that history and economic history teaches us. Generally speaking, all major decisions are made over the weekend. So if we do get a deal, and we have the US Secretary of State saying we're getting closer and closer to an agreement and so on, there are some good signals. The head of the Pakistani army is currently in Iran. So the Pakistanis are close friends of the Iranians, and by the way, also close friends of the American CIA. They have nuclear weapons, but it's a nuclear weapon that is, let's say, authorized by the United States of America. They didn't really have much of a choice. But basically, all the top Pakistani officials are really buddies, to put it simply, with the Americans. So if they move, if there's a conference and we're getting closer, we're not far from a deal. The famous Donald Trump deals. That's why the markets are showing it. They're hoping, they're waiting for some good news this weekend. Let me warn you about one thing. All the big decisions are made on weekends. Why? Because the markets are closed. So if there's a peace agreement or if we've made 80% progress toward a peace deal, they'll announce it on Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, since Monday is a holiday in the United States. And that also gives Donald Trump a second, potentially interesting opportunity. What he could do to try to push for an agreement is launch intensive bombings for 3 days. That wouldn't have any consequences on the stock market. He could start bombing heavily on Saturday, Sunday, and a little on Monday. He stops on Monday and the markets reopen on Tuesday. So there might not be any consequences. In any case, there won't be any impact on the price of oil because it won't be traded. So it's also a time when Donald Trump can carry out so-called massive surgical strikes to force part of the Iranian government to give in, because in fact they are extremely divided among themselves. There are those in the faction who are willing to sign. So it's not about good guys versus bad guys. It's about those who are willing to sign because they want to enjoy their money and not get a missile dropped on their heads. And then, well, you have those who are into eschatological fears, who believe in the end times. I've already talked about this. In Iran, there's an eschatological faction. They want the atomic bomb so they can drop it on Jerusalem. At that point, whether you're Jewish, Muslim, or Catholic, it doesn't matter. Everyone is affected. And according to them, according to their religious delusions, that's what would happen. But according to their religious interpretation, this would allow, for Christians, it would be Jesus Christ, for Muslims, Muhammad, who would come down to earth to judge all people, and then everyone could go straight to paradise. They wouldn't have to wait too long, there wouldn't be a purgatory, and so on. Personally, I hope there would still be a purgatory. Not often. Nobody's perfect, not even Abbé Pierre. In my opinion, he's going to spend a lot of time in purgatory if he doesn't end up somewhere else for that matter. But anyway, so there are the guardians of the revolution. Some of them want to live, and then there are others who hope for the end times. So nothing better than a good atomic bomb dropped in the right place to bring about Jesus, the prophets, and all that. There you go. No other particular comments, so just to let you know, this weekend it's probably, certainly, key anyway, there are 72 hours to find something, so that's why the markets are on edge. They're thinking if something decisive happens, it's more likely to be toward peace. Since Donald Trump keeps saying that, he's not a warmonger, he's not looking for war. Every time he says yes, it's a shame, there are casualties, etc., and so on. I think he's deeply, maybe religious, and that killing people, honestly, it's not good for his karma, and he doesn't like it. He shouts loudly, but he tries to avoid actually doing what he says, just to make the people facing him back down. All right, let's continue with today's analysis. So be careful, be careful, be careful. Things could happen this weekend. Whenever there have been crises, central bank interventions, it's always on the weekend, ECB decisions on the weekend. Here, the Lehman Brothers bankruptcy happened over the weekend. It's always the weekend. There are two people in the back following along for the Dow Jones. Flying high and looking great, everything is going super well. Above 50,000, it's really beautiful. The Dow Jones index from the moment it started to break out. And here, you can see it at its high from the 14th. It's been a week. It broke out and started accelerating like crazy. The Dow Jones is really in great shape. The Nasdaq a bit less so, as you can see compared to the Dow Jones. It hasn't broken its high yet, so the only difference is that for the Nasdaq, it still needs to break its high. It's at its all-time high, so it's still doing very, very, very well. It's hesitating a little around its monthly middle band, but you can feel that the American indices are ready to jump. They're ready to take off. They're just waiting for a white smoke signal. From Washington, not from the Vatican, but there you go. They're waiting for the good news so they can accelerate the S&P 500. Same thing here. It's also blocked by its resistance. A monthly level, always. If you don't have a monthly pivot in front of you, you won't understand much about the stock market. Jacques Slayer, because I have to teach my live classes for my students in 5 minutes. Gold, not good. Bitcoin, not good. Oil, it's dropped back below $100. And that's the excellent news. And that's also what explains the current rise in the indices. So I'm going to speed up a bit. So we've seen the reason for this rebound. It was wandering, but it seems well negotiated. The Pakistanis are in the loop when the Pakistanis are involved. It fits well with our triangle, actually, and that's something I really want you to understand. We have an Iran oil triangle. It's closely tied to these connections. How? Every statement from the region is also linked to several dollars on the price of a barrel of oil. Every extra dollar on a barrel of oil. It drives inflation expectations higher. Oil is everywhere. I even have it in my mouse. Plastic is made from oil and so on. So the price per barrel goes up. Because Iran makes a statement, that drives prices up pretty much everywhere. And if prices go up everywhere, if we have rising inflation expectations, every bit of inflationary pressure supports keeping long-term rates high. So, Strait of Hormuz, Iran. Getting tired now. Inflation. Thank you, Jules. Inflation's the third factor. Logical pressure on raves. So, that's where we are. It's kind of our little infernal trio. Today's agenda, I'll be quick. At 10 o'clock, we have the German Business Climate Index. If you trade the DAX, that's extremely important. The minutes from the last ECB monetary policy meeting. At 1:30 p.m., nobody cares, and at 4 p.m., new home sales in the United States. We don't care about that either. We're no longer in the subprime crisis. On the other hand, there are several speeches. I can't give you all of them. Check the list and go to the Federal Reserve website for the member schedule. They have their little calendar for the day. Normally they shouldn't. They are keeping a low profile. Right now, there shouldn't be any revelations coming out that would shake up the markets. But if things start moving, it's mostly because of Trump, or if T's Rang tweeted something. Let me give you the little anecdote of the day, as I promised you. So, in 1973, during the first oil shock, a young American trader named Mark Rich realized before anyone else that oil, which was being sold through long-term contracts, was about to become a tradable commodity. On the spot market, everyone would want oil immediately, not a contract. Not a contract that says, I'll deliver oil to you in 6 months, in 9 months, right away. So when the Iranian Revolution broke out in 1979, he secretly bought Iranian crude oil. He didn't pay anything and resold it to the rest of the world despite the embargo. Okay, and that's how he built an empire that still exists today. It's called Glencore, which is one of the largest trading houses on the planet. He was indicted by the United States. He fled the US for 17 years. There were even a few kidnapping attempts to bring him back to the US. He managed to get away before being pardoned by Bill Clinton. Under circumstances, let's just say they're still a bit controversial. Maybe he had enough money to buy his pardon. In any case, the President of the United States pardoned him, even though he had secretly sold Iranian crude oil in 1979. That gives us a little lesson, just in time for her. In the markets, great fortunes are often made in the gray areas of geopolitics. Just as a reminder, when you go, for example, to see the German bunkers along the Normandy coast that were supposed to repel the Anglo-Saxon invasion, that concrete was built by Bouygues, the concrete company. It's solid, it's tough. Why? Because Bouygues was the only French cement company that agreed to collaborate with the Germans. There you go. All the others refused, they fled, they were imprisoned, they were executed, and we And the Germans gave the properties of Bouygues' competitors, the companies, to Bouygues, saying, "You want to collaborate?" Boom. So that's the Atlantic Wall. It's Bouygues concrete. It's solid. It's really solid. All right, have a great session, everyone. See you on Monday. I wish you an excellent weekend, which might get a little eventful. Always stay curious. Ciao. And I'm super late for my school group. 4 minutes late already. Oh well, ciao. And then give it a little like and all that, you know, the drill. I just need to find the button. There. No, I don't have the button. Wait, yes, I do have the button. There we go. Well, that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but anyway, don't hesitate to sign up. It really means a lot.